When former Labor Minister Barry Cohen approached Gough Whitlam a few years back for help in preparing a book of anecdotes, the reply was vintage Whitlam. At my age, he said, he's 81 next week, it's difficult to be witty and erudite all the time. But he's certainly making a fist of it. Whether speaking, writing or conducting tourists around the world's historical site, he remains a character larger than life. His latest book, Abiding Interests, has just been released, and we took the opportunity to catch up with Gough Whitlam. Dismissed, but not out. Mr. Whitlam, you said a couple of years ago that, comrade, I can't do the voice, there are more ex-politicians writing books than reading them. So why have you decided to add to the volume?
There was need of a good one.
All right. One of the books that has been recently published by an ex-politician, Sir Paul Hasluck, former Liberal frontbencher and former Governor-General, he describes the young Whitlam, aged 36, going to federal parliament, as bright-eyed, cheeky and a real smarty pants. Do you recognise that man?
No, I do recognise that that's what he would have thought. And of course, if you read what he and I used to debate in the 50s and into the 60s about Aborigines and Papua New Guinea, you'll see that I did probe a very great number of aspects of his administration.
How would you regard the current government?
Still learning. The very great failure of Mr. Howard himself is to have delayed in confronting the Hanson phenomenon. And of course, he should have realised that there are a very great number of people in important political and diplomatic positions all around our neighbourhood who still remember how the White Australia policy was administered until my government was elected.
Would you also accept that Mr. Beazley hasn't been exactly forward in condemning Pauline Hanson?
He hasn't been strong in condemning, but he's never said anything which would cover up for what she does. Whereas John Howard very often says she's entitled to say it. Well, of course she's entitled to say it. But top politicians are bound to confront what she says.
If leadership is the way out...
Yes.
Would you say that's what we've seen from Kim Beazley?
I don't think that he's well served by some close to him.
As a leader, does he have the right stuff?
I would like him to be a bit keener to bring up new issues. I mean, I didn't become deputy leader, and still less would I become leader of the party, if I'd paid too much attention to what polls were showing or what journalists were writing. I discovered new issues.
But would you accept, Mr. Whitlam, that the Parliament these days, the politicians these days, seem poll-driven?
Yes, they are. Far too much.
Populist.
I didn't get our party into government by just following polls. I created issues.
But you went to the 1969 election with a very clear set of policies. We knew what you stood for.
Absolutely.
Do you know what today's Labor Party stands for?
In many... Yes, I'd emphasise this. I mean, I accept...
Could you tell me?
I accept that the people in the party are very shocked, having been thrown out after 13 years. And one of the troubles was that when Keating belatedly became the leader, he had to devote a very great deal of attention to matters which had been allowed to drift under Hawke. And these were very contentious ones, such as the WIC, or Mabo number 2, or Mabo number 1. We hadn't pursued those. They had to be dealt with. And that distracted Keating from things which he would be wanting to pursue, because once he became leader, he got a very much better grip of the wider picture. And there's a lot of people there on the front bench who were ministers. They're very upset at no longer being ministers.
Lindsay Tanner, the opposition frontbencher, has described the Labor Party membership recently as tiny and ageing. Do you think that is part of the problem with the Labor Party, that it's almost arthritic in some ways?
Well, I don't know what he said because there's a D notice on what he said. I can't get a copy of it.
Trust me, Mr. Whitlam.
Yes, no, I don't know if you read it. No, I don't like to ask John Howard for a copy of what has been suppressed by the deputy leader or aspirants for that job. What I do resent is a person like Lindsay Tanner being put down.
When you became leader, that was part of what you did. You took on the old men of your party.
I suffered it.
But you won.
Because we were defeated in 49. I was elected 3 years later. And there were some people who'd been defeated in 49, ministers under Chifley, couldn't have been more helpful and encouraging to me. There were some others who weren't going to let me get ahead until they'd got ahead of me.
Are we seeing a rerun of history? Are the old men running things?
It is possible, but I think I've been around long enough to alert people in the state branches and in the state executives and the national executive to what's going on.
How would you explain, say, to a 20-year-old who hadn't even been born during the dismissal, who knew nothing about reserve powers or the Governor-General or the Constitution, and you were just sitting there and saying, do you know what happened to me in 1975? What would you tell them?
Well, the Governor-General and the Chief Justice conspired to get rid of another barrister from Sydney, and they did it secretly.
They locked out another barrister who happened to be the Prime Minister. Really?
But I've expressed my views about them quite well, actually.
So, in a sense, did you win? When you look at what happened to Sir John Kerr and what happened to Sir Gough Whitlam, did you win?
If you look at it purely in the personal thing, what do the public think about them or about me? But, you know, that's not what I go on the program here about. I want to look to the future. I want to see that that sort of undercover operation can't occur again. You'll notice Malcolm Fraser. I have quite civil relations with Malcolm, and I don't think he set out to deceive me. He took advantage of Kerr, surely. Let me mention Tammy Fraser. It wasn't long before Tammy Fraser woke up to Second Lady Kerr. I always give her full marks for this, because after a while, the Second Lady Kerr said to Tammy Fraser, "You may call me Anne when we're alone."
Can I ask you about the Republic? In your book, you say that there is more support, you believe, among Australians for a Republic than for any program provided by either party.
Yeah.
Well, if there's so much support, why is it so difficult?
Because members of the Federal Parliament don't accept their responsibilities. The only way you can substitute a president for a monarch is to have the Federal Parliament draft alterations to the Constitution to achieve that, and secondly, for the government of the day to put those proposals to the electorate.
So it's the politicians that are holding it up?
Yes, of course, and federal politicians are the only way, the only people who can initiate an alteration of the Constitution, and it's their duty to do it.
You say in your book that, in fact, the only individual Australian who could stand up against the political parties to become the head of state is Kerry Packer. Were you joking, predicting?
It would cost an immense... You're talking about this proposal that there should be an election over the whole country of the head of state. Now, what I point out there was that the only people who could finance a campaign for a president would be the Liberal Party or the Labor Party. The only individual who could do it would be Kerry Packer.
Possible?
And quite frankly, I think his wife would be a great First Lady.
Vote one for Ros Packer. Okay. Media ownership. You stood up in 1991 with Malcolm Fraser, both in the Sydney Opera House and...
I signed a thing in The Age
recently,
a week
yes.
ago.
What's your feeling on that now?
I think they ought to ensure that there's no reduction of competition between the media. I think it's appalling that the newspapers, and I'm primarily a newspaper reader, that the newspapers in most states are owned by one person. I'm disadvantaged. I don't have time to listen to the radio people during the daytime, or the programs that there are at night always. We're a bit prejudice in favour of the ABC, actually.
How antiquated of you.
Well, we are getting on.
What is the good thing about getting older?
Oh, you get very tolerant, you have to.
So the arrogance charge no longer would apply. You're a tolerant man now.
Always have been. The only people that ever found me arrogant, intolerant, were pretty intolerable themselves.
Your book is dedicated to my most constant critic, Margaret Whitlam. Do you need one?
She thinks so.
And you?
I tolerate it.
Do you feel the weight of history upon your shoulders?
Well, I've made so much of it.